but
Sorry, I forgot to press
no
record.
problem.
Great,
Do
great.
you, anything you want to change? You want to,
No,
however
no,
you want to
that's
do it?
fine. That's fine. Thank you. Thanks for the reminder,
Do,
Ben.
should I just keep going or what's your
Yeah,
thoughts?
just keep going. Yeah, sure.
Okay. Okay. No, I'll start from the beginning though
Oh, okay.
to make that clean.
Thank you.
Yeah. So just so we can make it
Sorry about that.
seamless. No, no problem. Understandable. Totally. It happens all the time. Um, Hi, everybody. Very honored to do a presentation for UFO Research Queensland. Thank you, Cheryl, for inviting me. My name is Jeff Selver, and I'm the author of The Rising and the Alien Plan to Build an Enlightened City on Earth. My soft cover book and ebook are available for purchase at www.jeffselver.com. I also have a YouTube channel where I post presentations that I do at UFO groups, and I was also recommended to join Facebook, so I have recently put myself there. So you can follow me on any of those if you like. Now, my story starts when I was 20 years old, and I always explain it that I had an extreme consciousness event. At the time, I didn't call it that. All I knew was that I had touched God, but it had some other strange elements to it. It's first off important to mention that I was a regular 20-year-old. So I was a musician playing in bands, but I had a progression of spiritual experiences that began to culminate. Psychic experiences, past life awareness, and premonitions that kind of just started to speed up, if you will. And at the time, what happened seemed natural. And then it turned into something. So just going to quickly. A lot of stuff in here my way here. So this here is an autobiography I started in the year 2001. And several years after this consciousness event, I documented this strange event in the period of my life. So largely because I knew I might forget it. And as you can see, it was last modified in 2002 in May 29th. So this is a part of my history. And so when I open it up, it's quite large, so I won't go into it obviously, but so my body felt golden light, like the cells of my body. I felt like I had literally wakened myself up from a deep sleep. The experience is virtually impossible to describe, only that my heart was awakened to its truest, fullest self, and that this whole time throughout my life, my body was my soul. Like the energy that my body is my soul. Now, this experience was paired with a message to leave society. It's if that's confusing, it's all laid out in my book in as much detail as I can put it. But the point is, the consciousness event was combined with a message to leave the world basically, and kind of start traveling. So first I resisted it, and then I left, as probably most humans would. And that's it. Some personal, spiritual, mysterious event happened to me, and that's all I knew. Now I was traveling, and so now I was traveling, and my parents gave me a car right from the get go, and I had $900, and that was the end of it. I started living out of my car on Vancouver Island, and in about 6 weeks, I decided to go to Hornby Island. I camped just off of a beach, so I was kind of backpacking, left my car on the mainland or on Vancouver Island, and kind of hitchhiked over to the islands. And one night, I was eating. So I basically camped right here. And one night, I'm eating out of a pot after cooking my meal on the fire, when this red object shoots up at an odd angle to my left, and then remains stationary. I'm weirded out by it, but I assume it's a flare because of its color. And I've now has since researched these flares, and it didn't smoke. It was controlled, kind of sat there in this kind of weird angle and remained there, remained stationary. And the longer it sat there, the more uncomfortable I became. And then it lowered into the forest. And then I felt something was now in the woods. And I put out the fire to go to bed, and I took one last look into the forest and wondering if I was safe. And because, it felt like something was there, and I actually felt that way to me, and I didn't really know what was going on. And I kind of just said, what, I felt my heart and was like, no, no, I'm safe. I feel safe about this. So I went to bed. I woke up in the middle of the night, and I literally said they were here. I never said that in the past. I never said that ever again. And the they was this faceless presence associated with this consciousness event. I didn't know, I didn't like it's all laid out in my book, but there were some kind of markers. There were some events that happened that made me feel like another presence was involved in what happened to me. That's why I kind of felt like a victim and I got traumatized by it. It's really strange to say. Like I wasn't a meditating person. I was just a kid who had these kind of things happen. And then all of a sudden it bursted into a message to leave society. And then I start seeing an object in the sky. And so I woke up saying, they were here. I felt uncomfortable. I went to go urinate in the middle of the night, and there was a woman right beside my tent, relatively 30 feet or so, and she was staring off into the ocean. So I was here and she was over here on a rock, and she was staring off into the ocean, looking at a moon, crescent moon, and the wind was blowing and it was haunting. And I was really weirded out that what had happened. I didn't understand why a woman was so close to my tent and like what was going on. And I, urinated, but I was also conscious to not, disturb her and scare her. So I went back to the tent. And then the next day, as I walked along the field, I felt that the red object I had seen had been there, and I couldn't quite put that together. I didn't understand what that meant. I didn't know what happened. I didn't quite understand the whole series of events and why it felt like something had been there. What was significant about it? Why I thought maybe I had an astral projection. I couldn't remember. I didn't, or that I had left my body, or something. I just didn't understand it. And then I kept traveling and part of my journey and kept moving on. And then every time, I would be in a certain moment. I was on the Atlantic Ocean here in Canada, and I went out to a rock in the middle of the night, and I remembered this woman. And the moment I remember this woman standing on the beach, I see an orb in the sky. And so in this case, I saw an orb travel across the ocean, maybe 30 or 40 feet. And I was very stunned by the thought I just had about this weird woman that I was still a mystery to me. And then I see an orb on the sky, on the ocean, and then it disappears. And those kind of events started to repeat, where I would remember that woman again in some weird random moment, and I'd see a white orb. And then the orbs just picked up. All of a sudden, they were consistent, and I called them. At the time of my life, I called them those in the stars who follow me, because I just didn't quite understand what was going on. And then the traveling period ends with me and my wife, to be wife at the time, meeting traveling. And I was kind of hitchhiking around, and she was hitchhiking around. We met, and there was an orb that was associated with it. And so it's part of our history, and we talked about it at our wedding. And that's kind of it. As soon as I moved to Toronto, where she lived, that was the end of it. The orbs ended, everything ended, and all that weirdness stopped. And I didn't understand ever what had happened to me, what the consciousness event, and it all kind of just remained a mystery. And then they came back. So roughly 20 years later, they came back. And they came back at a time when I was looking for answers to the consciousness event. And they displayed the same appearance and maneuvers as I saw them traveling. And that's when I knew something bigger was going on, especially that I was at this period trying to understand it. And then they repeat, it's just obvious at that point that that consciousness event and the reason I started to travel was somehow associated with these objects. And that really started to kind of freak me out. I didn't quite know what that meant. And so these are kind of like loose orbs that I'm able to video. They're always red, though it's not always clear here. But occasionally I was able to capture, and that's another orb, but this kind of weird stuff. So, spinning weird floating objects. Um, So yeah, I have several videos of UAP which are available on my YouTube channel. Some I break down and analyze. I do with this one here because it's definitely a UAP, though it kind of looks like a balloon. But I have some weather data as well too to show there was no air moving at the time I saw this thing. And so they do appear to be very aware of me filming them also, because these are just the ones I'm able to film. I've seen many other orbs in the area here, and they don't, I can't film them because it's too quick, or yeah, it's very brief. And they also, I can feel it. They don't always want me to be filming them. So that's the gist of that. So once the orbs came back, the memories broke out, and that's when the flashbacks and everything kind of started to erupt. And I was appalled that I had been actually having contact without my knowing. What's really interesting is that the orbs and all these things I saw weren't really always associated with actual contact events or moments. But only two of them actually are, where I saw an object and that turned into a contact event I didn't know about. But in most cases, they were just orbs in the sky that seemed to be interacting with me. And then the contact event would be another time I wasn't even thinking about alien contact or thinking about anything weird. So it's really interesting how it all kind of plays out. So once I began seeing the objects in the sky, yeah, basically all the memories and flashbacks came out. And so now I worked hard to understand what exactly had occurred to me. A, because that consciousness event occurred, I was deeply altered by it, I needed to know. I needed to understand it. I needed to get it all accurate. I needed to understand it with 100% accuracy, what had happened, because, it's so personal to me and I didn't quite understand the details. So I'd been fairly transparent about my process, about how I got the memories back. And there is an essay on my website, How the Science of Accurate Memory Recall is on my side. As the majority of my contact events happened outside in nature, I was able to go back to locations and match things I had seen in my memory, proving to myself these were flashbacks. These flashbacks, sorry, were actually real memories. In some cases, I had knowledge of locations in nature I had never been to. This slide here that I'm showing you is just to show that I've gone to a lot of these locations, exploring them and putting pieces together of what actually occurred to me. So the evidence of my story. I passed a lie detector test available on my website. I have videos of UAP. I have corroborations with different data sets on the phenomenon. As the majority of my contact events happened in nature, there were strange crossovers. And these would all come out. I would be presenting on my contact events and then even had the book in some cases of the first edition. And then I would learn some of these details. I didn't know about the missing 411 Canada connection. And so I got really interested in understanding that. So for those who don't know what missing 411 is, David Paulides, a researcher here in America, has done basically there are paranormal circumstances that people can go missing in parks. So it's a little bit morbid, and I don't want to talk about it too much, only that I've done a presentation to show I'm pretty convinced that's not aliens, but other paranormal type of activity that can happen out in nature. Cryptoids would be an example of that. So yeah, very weird. But the bizarre, there were locations that I had a contact event that turned out to have multiple, missing 411 cases. So the example of that is in my ninth contact event occurred seemingly in a remote location in the middle of Vancouver Island, which was home to two bizarre missing 411 cases. I also have collaborations with the UFO BC database, which is very similar to you guys having your own database. My database extends over 100 years with hundreds of sightings all over BC. And people have reported seeing objects, the same objects I had seen, been talking about publicly in the same geographical areas. I thought that was really weird. So the example I showed you, Hornby Island, people had repeatedly seen red objects there, just as I'd seen them. And I didn't know about that. So weird kind of connecting pieces were happening over these memories. Never mind the experiencer cooperation, which just a couple days ago, me and Susie Hansen did a presentation, and we were showing how much cooperation happened between our contact events, how similar the aliens' behavior and their technology. Very strange how this kind of just keeps repeating. I keep finding people who have something very tiny and specific that was similar to my own contact events. And two researchers have done deep dives into my story and publicly endorsed me. So Ian Halling, who's the co-host of Earth Files with Linda Moulton Howe, he showed up on day one of my public speaking event, July 5th, 2020, at a local UFO group. Since he has partaken in every single presentation, and so he's really done a deep dive with me. And then Susie Hansen herself, author, researcher, and co-founder of ICER, International Coalition for Extraterrestrial Research, whom I spent 18 months with over Zoom, going through every detail of my story. And she helped me edit my new book, and Thomas Hansen, her husband, did the art for it. So I'm very grateful for their contribution, and yeah, very happy. Oops, I wanted to add this. So never mind all that cooperation, but these guys, these officials, CIA, Pentagon, right, Lou Elizondo, these people, they keep talking, and their stuff is matching my content as well too. And I think that's where the importance of a man like me waking up and then when I did at 2019, how important it is as the public is even just accepting this now. So and so I'm actually doing a presentation that is showing some of this very detailed collaboration. So of course you're invited, anybody here. It's on Meetup, and so that's available on Meetup, and it's also available on my website to find that link if you need to. So what happened to me with the aliens? It all started on a weekend night in October of 1993 when I was 16 years old in Coquitlam, BC, in Canada. So this is Vancouver, Canada. And Coquitlam, I grew up here in a suburb of Vancouver. And basically, I was walking home one night. I lived over here and I was 16, so I was hanging out with friends, and I had walked at the time there was no street lights, and it was a very dark pathway, dark road. And I'd actually been jumped on the street, so I was uncomfortable. And so I was hanging closer to the woods and closer to the school. So this is my old junior high school. And I was walking in kind of through here, and then in the dark, I was going over the field. And as I did, that's my pathway. That's the field. I've gone back since, and it's now developed, and it wasn't developed at the time. It was just still a soccer field for the school, but it wasn't developed in any way. And it was dark, and something fell from the sky. Literally a gray alien, which I wasn't computing at the time, gray alien, but it fell from the sky. And then I got terrified, and it froze me, and I was kind of stuck in this kind of position. And then I was terrified, and I'm kind of trying to get out, and it says it's projecting in telepathy, and says you won't be able to move no matter how hard you try. And it's not saying maliciously, but it's saying that that's the first thing it says to me. And I try harder because that terrifies me more. And then it says, okay, it's okay, we're not going to harm you. It's projecting this kind of this message to me. We're not going to harm you, we're friendly. And then that kind of gets me to stop, and I look at it. And that's, the face of these things is the bottom line is just that we're conditioned, right? The human face is we're conditioned to the sight of our proportions, and to see, even though you see an image of it, it's not the same thing as seeing it in person. And I was very disturbed is the only way I can frame that. Terror for my life in the moment, but disturbed at the sight. And and so what was also happening, by the way, I had childhood contact events. Now they ended roughly when I was 7 years old, and but they were I just don't have the answer to this stuff. The memories are consistent throughout the contact events, but when you're not having the contact event, you don't remember it. So, but when you meet them again the second time or the third time or the fourth time, you remember all the other times. So on the field, I'm remembering the childhood contact events. And so so there's a bit of weird like familiarity, and I can't quite put it together because it was almost 10 years before, but there's some kind of familiarity, and I'm disturbed. I'm like kind of confused by what's going on. And it was almost a flood of the childhood memories are coming in. And so it's telling me to come with us to our ship. It's asking for my permission. And I don't respond. And so it asks me one more time, come with us to our ship. We'll bring you right back. And then it kind of either lets me think it through, or I don't, it basically either puts the memory into my mind, or it lets me think it through, as if it kind of said, you remember us before, and we don't harm you, right? Like we're safe. It's almost like it gives me a moment to remember the childhood contact events. And then I kind of like not understanding what I'm remembering, and that there's this moment when I'm safe with them. And so I just accept. I'm like, okay, I'll a part of me is a little bit curious, and that's it. I'm a teenager and I want to know. And so I accept it, and I'm okay. And I say okay. And then it basically beams me into a craft I wasn't aware that was there. And there was a craft floating above, there was a V-shaped wing craft floating above the school. By the way, I always love to know to speak about the corroborations. Several years later, someone will see a very large object the size of a V-shaped wing craft right here in the same corner in the UFO BC database. So just weird connecting pieces like that. So this is the entity that I got to know. And I call it the Elder. It never tells me a name, and it's kind of an essence, a telepathic essence, if you will, and I call it the Elder. And I basically make an agreement with the Elder. It's an agreement to discover my soul. It just sounds so hokey and strange and weird, and I can relate to all that, and I would agree with you. Now, at the age of 16, I don't even really know what that means, but the bottom line is that they emphasize I have their genetics. I've always been very public about this, and I've actually proven it to myself that I have that. So it's a definitive part of the story. And I actually felt good in their presence, and I couldn't quite put it all together. And they kind of explain it how I have their genetics. And whatever portion of my DNA that is, I don't quite understand those details, but something is linked, and I could feel it. And so here she is pointing at what I call the holographic timeline. And they were something in my future they liked. And I didn't quite understand that either. But I was really, really, besides all the kind of weird awkwardness and kind of, the parts that are very scary, I was definitely intrigued, because it was obvious this was a different world. The craft was felt alive. The whole thing, the holographic timelines, all this stuff, just the communication. So it was, I was uncomfortable, but I was like, I wanted to know, and plus it was about me. So I'm linked to them somehow. I couldn't figure it out. I wanted to know more details. So I did agree, and it sounds pretty crazy, but it's what I did. And so now this is, so yeah, this is, she, at one point she says, this is the reason why you are here. This is what we are here to help you with. This is your future outline of things to come. Now, of course, it doesn't make any sense to a human looking at these objects, but for them, it was a symbol of periods of my life and the way they wanted to interact with me. And so they were kind of just, it was just abstract, and I didn't have any understanding of them, of what it meant at the time. I now know it's 3 years. So this is 3 years, and this is another 3 years. And they were trying to make an agreement to say, "Do you want to you will interact with us? Is that okay?" And I said yes, without knowing the details. And so these are the contact events as far as I understand it. There were no dots in the holographic timeline that I saw at the time, but now I understand all these details. And so I actually made a legend for the reader in the book, and of course we'll use it today to help you understand where we're going with this. So this was a really profound contact event. They wanted to tell me things, and some things they wanted to tell me, some things they won't tell me. Um, so I ask, so okay, it's an agreement to discover my soul, and I ask, is there anything I should do? And she says, keep your heart and mind open to learn new things. And I'm inquiring, can you tell me who you are? We are humanity's agents of change. And then she's talking a bit about the future, about humans in general, and basically she projects into my mind. So they have this kind of telepathy. Never mind just kind of words. It's not really words, but forms or telepathy formations that we would translate into words. But they also like project imagery, and like they're communicating through imagery. And this was what they projected: an Earth with a human and an ape. And I understood it to mean the summarization of evolution. It was like a feeling of evolving, like human ape to human, but what's about to happen is going to be the next step, actually. Like we went from apes to human. Well, you're going to go to this next level, which is basically the same equivalency, something that is just hugely scales up that I think we can't quite grasp yet. And that's really what this seemed to emphasize, that there was kind of an evolution going on here, and that I was playing a part in it for them, helping them understand humans, and also, hey, you would evolve. And that's kind of how she explained it to me. I was 16 and I was just saying yes, because it was connected to me in some way that I didn't quite understand. I'm taken into an impossibly massive white room. Both me and Susie Hansen identify this as the same room, and we've both been in it. And Linda Porter, I'm certain this is the Linda Porter from Linda Moulton Howe's book, uh, Other Strange Realities, I think it's called. I can't quite remember the name, but Linda Porter is the contactee, and then she goes to a soul transfer room, same concept. And I'm certain these are all the same places. And the elder says to me, what is about to happen is going to be beyond your comprehension. And I'm turned into an orb, and I experience a bliss rush, a childlike, joyful, but the body basically phases, and then this ethereal energy of the ghost you, if you will, is what's left, and it collapses into an orb. And so even just anytime I'll describe it, I can feel it. And there's childlike elation and ecstatic freedom of lack of body. And so at first there's a bit of play with this, and I experience them that way. And so what happens is a transference of my mind, or like, the part of you that thinks, with which they are the same as me. And so the whole fear part dissolves. They're the same thing as I am. I'm them, and we're all just the same. We're just core energies. And that seemed to be one of the significant things about this, never mind what it did to me, but also to share in that lack of fear. All of a sudden, all the fear just blows away because they're just the same thing that I am, this core energy form. And then within that, now there's a vision. So it's really intense and a big contact event. They show me the death of my last life. So there's a whole thing that happens. A portal opens up. Yes, a portal opens up, and I go inside and I see the death of my last life. Now it sounds totally off the wall, but listen, it is my past life. I've learned those details, but I knew it before I had this memory. So it's complex here. And what they show me is the death of my last life as it goes into the afterlife. And then I see the afterlife. And I see some kind of symbolic versions of things where it's obvious the elder is kind of covering things up. It's the best way I explain it is as if I'm watching a hologram of shared experience. So it's a transference of experience, and it's like they photoshopped holograms of real moments. So I'm because they clearly didn't want to show me everything, but they show me the certain details that are very specific. And one of them is that they're there. So it's this kind of shocker for me, even as that 16, like, oh, they're in the afterlife. Like they're interacting with my higher self. And my higher self plays a part in this. And this is how crazy it goes. And and yeah, and so the whole point is that there's an agreement that gets formed by the higher self with the gray aliens, and that's why they're doing this in that present moment. So there's an agreement that gets formed, and I witness it. And then I witness my higher self considering how to birth me with the whole doing my own normal life, because I do have a normal life, but also having the grays, what they want in my life. So it's a whole very complex picture that gets created. Now, what I just told you might be so unbelievable. Oh, come on. Don't tell me this stuff. This is all new age nonsense, right? Well, in reference, so it's looking like cooperation is coming on these details. And I want to point that out right here. On Neil Mitchell Asks Why, September 25th, 2023, in reference to the UFO UAP phenomenon, Ross Coulthart stated, it may also explain the other mystery in human life, which is what happens to us after we die. Now, who Ross Coulthart is he's the one who broke David Grush, who went to the Senate, and now the Senate uses the words like non-human intelligence and dimensions to explain aliens. And that happened because David Grush was the highest-ranking whistleblower from the Department of Defense, and Ross Coulthart had to do background checks on David Grush to confirm his story to be legitimate. So he has a bunch of information, and now he talks about it on podcasts. And I do want to share with you just this one fascinating clip here. Sorry, there's too much stuff. It's very brief.
And they call it the phenomenon because they think that what we're talking about is far more than just structured craft. Yes, it's biologics, but it may also explain the other mystery in human life, which is what happens to us after we die. Because a large part of what I'm investigating at the moment is that what we're talking about here may not in fact be a technology as we understand it, which might explain why we're having so much trouble reverse engineering it. It might in fact be a manifestation of some kind of uber consciousness that is essentially, or the theory goes, expressing itself through physical form to basically make humanity become aware. I mean, I know this sounds kooky, but I'm getting this from people in US intelligence who actually say to me, thank God somebody from mainstream media is taking this issue seriously.
So just a bit of cooperation, right? And I was speaking this way since July 5th, 2020. And now I actually have interesting cooperation that even that is possible, that a human being can see the afterlife on an alien spacecraft. So
they call it the phenomenon because they think.
So that's the gist of what they did with me when I was 16. Now, the next part that gets really weird is how they were able to box this stuff in, because it didn't, though there were imprints that affected me from that point onwards. Sorry, once the memory was obscured and I didn't know the contact event had occurred, there were imprints of it, but it didn't alter me in huge ways, maybe subtly, but they seem to be really understanding about, and I don't know, I don't really have the answer how that quite happened. There seems to be some evidence that some of this is happening outside of time now, that the aliens can freeze time and they have this manipulation of time, which is very advanced, and that contact events can happen outside time. And so I really don't have the answer. But what was happening for every time I met them in the contact event, the burst of what happened in the White Room would come back to life, and it'd be like this extreme thing that happened to me, and it dissipates as the contact events move on, as if it's integrating into my body and integrating into me. So they knew some kind of extra detail here about how the human would handle this and how they can manage that. I just don't have the answers for it, and I kind of wish I did. But so the third contact event, it happens in Walnut Grove, October 1996, and I'm 19 years old at that point. So it's been several years, and I haven't seen them, and I'm not thinking about that. And so basically, I'm on my way home from a girlfriend's house, and I have a contact event and it's on along the road. It's along this road here in the middle of the night. And there's two, basically I become the me that knows them driving. I call it the me that knows them, that is aware of that is aware of them, basically. It's this whole other me, if you will. Like Susie talks about, Susie Hansen, the dual soul connection, it's a real element here, that there's some kind of other awareness of the self. And so as I'm driving down the road, there's actually two tall gray aliens, and they basically tell me to stop. And I'm actually excited to see them. I'm like, it's been ages since I've seen them, and all of a sudden it kind of all comes together, what happened when I was 16. And so it was basically along this road that I stopped, and some interesting details. Um, so I used hypnotic regression. There were flashbacks. Actually, I knew I had the contact event here as a flashback, but it was in the regression that I realized I went with them down the hill. And I just, I drew these details out because I'm always proving it to myself. Like I'm just working with myself to kind of confirm that this did happen. And so I drew what I knew the area looked like. And of course, there was this weird dip on this portion of the road. It doesn't exist further down. Small details like that were the things I did for myself to confirm that these contact events were real and did actually happen in these environments. And so in the contact event, she's explaining who she is or what they are. And it's right there trying to build a trust with me, right? Because they're in an agreement with me. So I'm seeing baby gray aliens in these kind of tubes. And she says, this is how our kind is made. And from her, I could feel an emanation, right, of like motherly love. Like she had motherly love for these test tube looking babies. We are genetic manipulators. And the bodies in these tubes will have specific genetic purposes for the role each will play in our world. I could see their method of species creation was more controlled. We have also made the human bodies for your earth, for your souls to live in. And we did this a long time ago in an ancient era. And I got the impression from this kind of like telepathic emanation that she was speaking not the hundreds of thousands we expect, but tens of thousands. And I'm not saying, I just know that there is weird genetic anomalies in the human brain that occur in the 50,000 mark, 60,000, 70,000 mark. So I'm not certain what's being said here. I don't have the answer, but she's giving these impressions about things. And this is the most important part of what she says in this contact event. So I have another little box here I need to move around. We are engineers for ways of living for souls, lifestyle engineers. How life manifests in perception and spiritual connection in biology. We understand how biology manifests specific aspects of souls, so souls can go into certain bodies when they seek those types of experiences. We are the highest type of life engineers. We are called upon by and work with collective spiritual governing bodies to form agreements to create physical bodies for nation-faring planets and dimensional lands. This is what we have done with your home world. Now, this paints a picture that there's this kind of odd service role going on. And they continue to give hints and details about this type of perspective of them. So I basically add, in essence, the brilliance of these beings lies in their full understanding of spirituality, dimensionality, and genetics biology, and the merging of the two. They seem to accentuate certain aspects of biological forms to express specific spiritual consciousness perceptions and or abilities. The human body is simply one of their many products. And I think when this word is just for me, it captured the feeling, the essence of what she was saying, biological life engineers. I heard one person say that they're like the Matrix creators. And I think like we live in, a simulation theory, right? Quantum reality, the world around you is a simulation. And so they're the ones who are actually framing the reference of reality in the brain, knowing how limited the perception would be, but that's something the soul seeks, not that they're trying to do for us, that the soul is something, and then they're serving the kind of higher elements of consciousness, the higher self, if you will, or the God self, who knows. But that kind of perspective seems to be what they angle at here. So over many contact events, up to the 7th, they hid in the background of my life. So I'm coming home from friends and I have a contact event. I go on a hike, I have a contact event. While I'm out camping with friends, I have a contact event, and it's always hidden. So it's very obscured in the background of my life. So I didn't know it was occurring. Then I have this consciousness event. Sorry, this is it right here. So it starts the end of the year 1997. December 6th was when I actually labeled that it really kind of blew out. and I was journaling it in a journal. But on their holographic timeline, January 1st was this middle was definitely January 1st because it's when my parents left. So there was a variety of synchronicities that happened at the exact same time as me having this kind of existential consciousness event. I was desiring to become the energy. Now, what I was really wanting was the me in the white room, the person that become the orb. I was craving it, and I was desiring it, and that's kind of the gist of what this is about. That they gave me this experience, and then I was seeking to recreate it for myself. And so I'm explaining here that I journaled that I was desiring to know myself as energy, and I kept trying to make myself become an energy form in my daily world. And so this is like a symbol of what I was feeling at the time, like this joy, this intensity. I can't describe it, but only through words. And it is a profound state of consciousness, and it had this sense of fulfillment, and it was like I became the orb while in the body. And yeah, it was just profound, and it had a message to leave my life and go traveling. And then I have a whole story about that, but I eventually did. And then, as I mentioned, I went to Hornby Island. That was the 8th contact event. So that's right here. And that was the night I saw the red orb from the beginning of our presentation. And what it turned out happened is a very emotional moment on the beach where I learn they are the ones who did this to me. and I get the picture. I've been working on it, and my other me didn't know. And a weird psychological rift actually gets created where all of a sudden there's two realities that are very stark. One who knows what's going on, and the other who's left in a weird traumatic mystery, actually. And that plays on the contact events, the whole drama that creates. But it's almost like they reward me. But it is that they reward me, and this helped us. We learned about humans in the process. So what would you like to do? And I basically say, I want to know where you live. And she says, we live on Venus. And I have found other contactees who've been to cities on Venus as well too. And I see a city on Venus. I go to a city on Venus. I know that sounds absolutely, just out of this world, and that's exactly what it is. But that is exactly what happened. And it's like it was phased. It's like it was a dimensionally phased city. I could see was inter. The bottom line is I go outside and I can breathe and feel normal. And yet it's obviously an acidic, I'm very aware that it's, a human cannot be on Venus. And yet I was unfazed by being on Venus, being outside. And so was the occupant I was with as well too. And I'm convinced these are phased dimensional states that almost if astral plane, if you will. And when a biological form goes in there, it can interact with the environment without having the effects of the environment. That's my assumption because I wasn't explained. Continue having contact events as I'm traveling across Canada. And so I'm in northern Saskatchewan as I decide I'm going on a big trip across Canada because I'm just living out of my car doing nothing. And I go up northern Saskatchewan. And that's my 10th contact event. So we're right kind of in the middle right there. That's during July of 1998, and I was 20 years old. And in this contact event, I see a cow on the craft and emphasizing kind of like cattle mutilations, if you will. And I had been reporting on that, or at least I went public with that contact event, I think 2000. And I'd been talking about it pretty consistently. I have in several different presentations I've done for different UFO groups. I always kind of mention this. And I had no idea that northern Saskatchewan actually has prolific cattle mutilations. So again, it's another strange corroboration of the different data sets of the phenomenon that here I am talking about a contact event of seeing a dead cow on an alien craft, and then only to learn that the area actually had quite a bit of cattle mutilations, so much so that Linda Moulton Howe, who is, I think, done the most research on this phenomenon, I think she has 2 books on it. And Ian Halling was in the presentation. I talked about this, and Ian Halling has worked with Linda Moulton Howe. Linda herself actually has a case study in northern Saskatchewan, and these are both CBC articles, mutilated cows in Stockholm and in northern Saskatchewan, and they're confusing what CBC is talking about them in confusing ways. There's no blood, right? There's things that don't make sense about the deaths, and it's prolific in the area. And I was talking about having seen a dead cow, and that's my dead cow right there, on an alien spacecraft. And they don't really explain it. The aliens don't, and I don't inquire either, but it's part of the story that it was there. And it kind of seems symbolic, like they're showing you something. This is the contact event, the same craft, same contact event. I'm shown that they're making hybrids, and the hybrids are going to be put on the planet. And that's where they start really telling me the bigger picture stuff. Thomas Hansen did this picture for me, and yeah, basically they're lifeless bodies with no souls in them, quote unquote, but they're full grown, and they're slumping in their tubes. And I'm in shock, and that's the kind of image here. This was the general floor plan as I understood it, and I would have been right here in that picture you just saw, and these are the tubes. And so this alien I call the twin, because there were two of them. He's like, see, we're creating the new human. And these were the tubes, my own picture of them. And I ask why? Because the human has failed at the tasks we have given them. What tasks? And this is my conversation. To save the planet. Humans were required to save the planet, so we're stepping in. So it hints at this bigger picture. And I have done some research trying to understand these details that anyway, I won't go there right now, but let me tell you this, what more is said here. So, sorry, I moved over to a pole that produced a hologram. It was the Earth. And so this is what I saw, kind of an Earth just like this. Then I saw what looked like the surface of the Earth being devoured. So it was a consciousness hologram, and I could feel and all this emanation, all this kind of information, a three-dimensional, if you will. It was more information than just a normal hologram we would produce. Was coming into me basically, and I was able to read it. And so I understood what this was, a simple representation that humans were taking all the resources from the planet and eating away at it. I could feel the strain in all the systems of this biosphere that support life, the land, air, and the ocean. The devouring occurred until the entire surface of the planet was gone. Then it began to burn, and a raging fire ensued the planet. Then I watched as the planet was recreated. It was obvious the gray mind would dominate. But there was a distinct feeling of love of nature and preservation. There was a feeling of celebration that nature would be saved. It would be a nature society with great alien advanced technology. Not just that, a love would reign. The identity of the planet would change to encompass the Grey's wisdom, love, and kindness, yet highly sophisticated intelligence. This intelligence was an ingenuity that with nature, including its quantum and dimensional properties. So there is this feeling on craft that quantum, like when we look at quantum computers in the description, they say, which is a quantum computer will be able to better analyze the mathematical properties of nature. That's the feeling of a craft, which is this kind of blend of quantum, dimensional, and nature. And there was the whole, like, if you really, they're saying dimensions. Well, dimensions are an aspect of nature then. And so this idea that nature, quantum is all kind of one picture for them. So I could read further into this that the population would understand our dimensional and spiritual nature while in love with and respecting Mother Earth. So they kind of gave me this, symbol, if you will, about what they're doing. And it was obvious too. It was a beautiful planet. There was beauty behind it, and it had this feeling of proper planetary stewardship. I was in awe at the level of change, and it was massive. The whole entire planet had shifted. On this globe, North America was facing me, so just like this. And I saw a large, massive, advanced, glistening city in places where cities never were. So we don't hear about a massive city in the middle of North America. And one large city placed in the middle of the continent, just below the Canadian border. And another was placed in an area in Southern California, and the rest was just nature. And I understood this information was simplified, and I took that from the hologram that the biological systems of the planet would be so strained, they will step in. The gray aliens are here because of how badly we humans have messed up our planet. It is about preservation of nature and Earth as a whole. So this is not the line said to me in the moment, but it's relevant to say here because I don't like projecting fear. And this line was said to me in a separate section, separate time, and I did a whole presentation about what's mentioned in a presentation with Susie. Susie was there. Anyway, there's a background story about this line, but the point to mention is what it says. It's not to dominate you. It's to change to societal structures that benefit you and to change to societal structures that benefit nature. There are ways that are very advanced for society to coexist, but there are reorientations of your sense of self because they involve consciousness, technology. And that sense of self is the spirit, is the consciousness, is the heart, is what it is. It's the self, it's the consciousness, it's the heart. They explain more detail in this contact event. Why are they making hybrids? And basically goes back to the human brain. So the human brain has a weakness, is basically how they frame it. It has a grabbing function. Now, I'm of Vedic nature, and I do know for Vedic meditation, Buddhist meditation, there's always this concept that the brain has a self-destructive or self-interest mode that kind of works against the consciousness housed within the brain. And it's almost like that's what they're talking about, this kind of part of the self that, for individuals, this isn't a big deal, but when you start dealing with a collective, these might be problematic when it comes to the planet. And that seems to be what they're emphasizing here. So the twin explains, we created this brain and its grabbing function. And I asked, why did you do that? Because it was perfect for the time. It helped develop your society. Your grabbing function helped pull them out of their less developed ways. It was there just enough to develop society, but you always had the capability of not using it. It has always been a choice, but you've developed your world around it now, and it's too late to change. As if like damage is being done, it's too late to change. They end the contact event with showing me their God on a computer. This is the same thing I experienced in the White Room that I merged with. So the White Room, when I became an orb, had a unified with the environment. And they're showing me that, listen, I'd say that the Greys have discovered the quantum unified field underneath all reality. They can access it through computers, and they can experience God. And it's the same thing as meditating and spending 30 years to do that. It's the same concept, and it's powerful. And I merged with it when they showed it to me, and I would concur. And they were using it as a demonstration. See, this is our creator. This is God. So everything we're doing is in line with the natural order. Everything we're doing fits into a mold, a plan, and a purpose. That is to evolve humans, to evolve our species, so the Greys, and to evolve Earth's global society. Everything is fit to evolve our species as well as humans. It all fits into a natural order. And then they kind of end with basically explaining the result will be humans and hybrids working together, merging the species into one over time, I guess over generations. So pretty intense. And that is the reality of the situation I think that we're in with aliens, is that it's intense. And I'm always caught off guard between, giving this information versus pulling punches. And it's hard to argue with it. Yeah. Anyway, I have a ton. Oh, by the way, okay, another point to mention so this consciousness event changed me. And what it did is altered my body. It altered my cells in my body. And I had I go into greater detail in the book. I was healing faster. My body was rejecting processed foods. Actually, I would get sick if I ate a treat, like a chocolate bar or something. And I was highly sensitive to nature. I needed to be in nature. If I spent time outside of nature, I got drained. So my body was like hypersensitive, and I always didn't think about it too much just at the time. And now I realize, wait a minute, they did this thing with me. It was highly genetic because, as I mentioned, my body felt golden. There was this other genetic part of it. While they were taking my biology, all the year 1998, the entire year 1998 was highly biological, and it got to the point where I didn't want it anymore. And I started fighting with them, and that happens at the end of the year 1998. And so I had what I would call the worst of it, the worst of the biological events. But it ends. It ended after 1998. So there was, and then the relationship continued. So it was obvious to me, like I didn't have to be scared that this was going to happen again. So, but the reason why they would do that starts to make sense when you see that there's larger biological change that occurred, and then that becomes valuable for them. And so I have a plethora of contact events, and then at the end here, I'm at the end of almost the agreement, if you will. 21st contact event. I meet this kind of elder species or elder gray, if you will, kind of like a wise gray. And I get to ask some of the details. And so I'm asking, they actually give me permission, ask questions, ask what you want to know. And so I'm like, hey, why did you do this? Why did you, I hate to say it, but why did you take my semen? Like why, that was the reality of the scenario. And I asked about it. And because your protoplasm contains ingredients for the stars, was the response. And sent me an image of a star system. And I understood this to mean that the semen contains protoplasm, the living part of the cell, and that they use that to seed other star systems. But then I asked, why? But why are you doing that? Because the universe is hungry to be born. And so there's a picture forming here that is touched on in the book, but there's so many other things to touch upon here. So, but the picture being is they're in the afterlife. They make human bodies, they make other bodies, and they like I'm 100% convinced there's a service role. There's a grander service role, and they feel that they are like servicing God, if you will, God, which is putting you and me and all the souls in the world into bodies, which is us, which we're doing it on purpose. And then they're playing a function of that, a role within that. And it's not meant to be mad scientist. It's meant to be so advanced. We're dealing with beyond time, beyond space type concepts that are actually shocking for the human brain to comprehend and understand. And so it's so big picture that it might be part of the reason there's sometimes miscommunication or misunderstanding about what's going on here. Um, so oh, the contact events kind of summarized at the end. And then, there's another researcher in California. I can't remember her name, Evie, I think Lundgren, maybe her last name. And she does a whole thing on how aliens put people together for love relationships. I didn't know about that. And they actually brought me and my wife together. I actually did a presentation on it called Gray Aliens as Cupid, how the Greys led me to my wife. And it's real. It's all in the story. So amongst everything in this agreement, there's a love story. And it's my love story with my wife, and it's really profound and beautiful. And I had no idea for 20 years it was tied to gray aliens or tied to any alien contact. I don't see them. I see them. There's one last contact event in 2001, and then it ends. All that weirdness ends, and I go and live a normal life. I see them again. They're kind of like reminding me that they're here. And it's obvious because in 2016, they'll tell me to write a book. They wanted me to talk about this story publicly. So in 2008, I see them again. And it's kind of like they're just checking in and they're keeping up with me. I just knocked my microphone. They give me more information. And the important part here is at a depth, the planet produces a charge that feeds the life living around it. And that charge will be altered and changed to produce a new frequency on your planet. And that's when we step in to take charge of the new frequency. It will be a dimensional shift on your planet, and your species will have the proper stock of genes to make use of it. And we will do it together, humans and our species. Get this? Do you understand? Now, this is just like, what? What? And I'm also like a bit stumped by this, except there are a couple things I put together here in a big picture pieces. I'll talk about the next slide in a second, but the paranormal is highly connected to the phenomenon. It is paranormal. I actually say it is paranormal. It's a paranormal phenomenon. And the gray aliens, everyone I know who's a gray alien contactee turns into a medium. We can always contact, we can communicate with ghosts, right? If there's a ghost in an environment. And I have a story on my YouTube channel, and I was not a medium. That was not something I was. I don't claim to myself to be a medium, but I had this ability to interact with a ghost that was in my work environment, and everyone knew about it, the ghost, and I was able to communicate with it, and I helped it actually transition. It's really just, I know that's too much for people, but that's where this all goes. And there's something going on here about paranormal frequencies. Tom DeLonge now even said that they exist in another frequency, and I am 100% convinced they're bringing that frequency with them. They're bringing the paranormal realm or some version of it with them. And that's the problem with the human, and that's the problem, and that's why there's a hybrid species to help with all this stuff. Because when you interact with a telepathic ghost-like species, you interact with that part of yourself now, and that's where all these problems occur. Is that this is not what humans thought. We all thought this would be Star Trek, and it's not Star Trek. This is ghosts. These are ghosts that drive tech, is what it is, and that's probably the better way to frame this stuff. So there's something going on here where they're kind of explaining these details that there'll be kind of this larger dimensional shift to the planet. I don't know what our time is like, but we're almost done. Oh yeah, capping off here soon. So in 2016, they opened the memories. They actually say your memories are open, and we want you to write a book. Now, I didn't know about alien contact till 2019, so I just had this discordance in me, but I had no idea to look at aliens as the answer for that discordance. So it sat with me for several years, and but they actually at that point say your memories are opened. You can, we want you to write about them and talk about them with people. And this is when the elder tells me there is a new chapter in humanity being written, my friend. We're coming, and there will be a new city. She then showed me an image in my mind of a glistening city, much like the one I saw during my Northern Saskatchewan contact event on the planet hologram, where I saw that the gray mind would dominate. In this vision in my mind, I was seeing the city from an aerial view up close. The towers were tall, thin, beautiful, and majestic. They seemed made of an otherworldly metal, like a metallic emerald that shimmered with a reflective silver brilliance. The layout of the city was condensed and futuristic. I saw human gray hybrids walking around in human clothing, t-shirts and pants. It suddenly clicked. These hybrids were the hybrid babies I'd seen in the playpen when I met the Federation. Anyway, there's another contact event where they were showing me the hybrids as they were growing up. The image emphasized a feeling of their able bodies, their ability to fully walk, their dexterity, their human-like arms, their bald heads, and their black eyes. The strong feelings I felt in that playpen reemerged, holding that baby, feeling proud to be part of a program that created a new species. This is what they did with me, right? Drinking the Kool-Aid, I was isolated in this environment, and I bonded with it. I won't lie about that. I bonded with them and felt good about this process. And I still believe this. I still do understand the bigger picture and think this is all true. But now they were all growing up and I felt responsible for them. Like I had to facilitate them getting here on Earth. Now, I don't fully hold that weight upon myself, but at the time I understood the connection they were making. What was the strangest feeling of them all was that I wasn't connecting with these hybrids on my alien genetic side, but on my human side. These were not aliens, but people merged with something new. I felt these were human brothers, literally the new human. They are our friends. There was this relatability going on, and they're not threatening and not terrifying. And I think when this all is said and done, humans will find them very fascinating. And I just know these entities to be friendly. I know them. When you're on their level, they're very beautiful, actually. And I know that people don't like hearing that, but I will stick to that I actually do feel that way. She gives me one last piece, and it says some things about a larger picture. There will be a time when humanity's dark ages will be over and the new sun will rise. This is the end of an era where humans heal, and that day will be a great day, and in it will be the completion of humanity's chosen path. It will be a full circle, a completion of an era from enlightenment to enlightenment, from one light era into darkness back into a light era, where humans crawl out of the darkness in which they were in. It was a part of the path for humanity to learn and to grow, and that path that humans have chosen has come to an end. This is it. This is kind of the end of an era. It hints at, this larger picture that the aliens have always been here, which is kind of the new language, and that there was a choice for them to remove themselves and humans to kind of do our own thing, to grow and to evolve on our own for a while. That's kind of what it seems like. So the summary of what I know, at least this is the picture I believe is going on from not just the contact events, but from the whole information I can gather. The Greys, alongside the controller species, which would be considered the Mantis, and I interact with them as well, or him as well too. I call the leader in my book. They're taking the planet back. So this isn't a domination, this isn't a control, this is nature playing at its best. And then they're these kind of facilitator management role and of spirit consciousness stuff. And then they're kind of they're making this choice, or they're kind of, involving humans in this new planetary era. And I kind of point out, listen, aliens have been here the entire time. Well, look at the age of the planet, right? This is the age of the planet, this line here going up and down and up and down. And then the dinosaur's death is right here, and humans are a tiny blip. So I think we might be dealing with something with which maybe was using the planet a long time ago and maybe switches things up and keeps changing things up. And I point out that, maybe with their quantum tech, they can erase their presence so we don't know about it, or even exist in phase dimensional bases and cities that don't interact with nature so they don't leave imprints. But I think it's looking something like that is the picture. Again, she called herself humanity's agents of change. And at another point for me, she calls themselves the stewards of the planet. And so I think there's this service role going on here. So yeah, the summary is they're merging with our society. And this is all about consciousness. So the bigger picture is we are a quantum dimensional consciousness ourselves. We all have the capabilities of rising our kundalinis. So rising our own energies, becoming what I became. Purity of consciousness is a reality. So, consciousness is being filtered by the brain. The spirit energy of the consciousness is being filtered by brain. And there is a reality to unfilter it, to make sure we're trying to be as pure from our consciousness as possible. We would call intuitive thinking, maybe. A fulfilled state of consciousness that I experienced, right? Play, community, unity, connection, childlike freedom, and security with the unified field. These are all real consciousness elements of my story that permeate through Vedic philosophy, permeate through the Buddhism, right? These are a part of consciousness that the aliens definitely understand. And coming back to wholeness is coming back to love. And at our core, love is what we are. And I know that might sound cheesy for people, but I'm convinced this is the type of alternate reality that the aliens are bringing upon us amongst paranormal dimensions type content mixed in with it. So the summary of my story, this is the last slide. Why I believe finding God within, that is knowing you are God, is the solution to the alien presence on Earth. When we experience God, consciousness as the unified field, aware though, it's awareness, it's alive, it is, the universe is alive. We innately experience that every entity is a part of the family. So when you feel it naturally, you don't have a mental process to think through, that's things with me, I'm in unity with that thing. It is a part of your heart. It is a natural feeling in your heart. And the whales are a part of the family. The raccoons are a part of the family. The cryptoids are a part of the family. The entities that share, the invisible entities we can't see that share the planet with us are part of the family. And yes, gray aliens are part of the family. All these entities are part of the family. And I sometimes wonder if us not thinking that way is part of the conflict where, I think I heard one person say, well, they were confused by, anyway, it's about love is what it was. And they were saying, well, this is what the love my wife shows me, the acceptance of who I am is what an alien should be doing if that's the level it's on. And I'm like, no, I have a guru, and gurus do not act this way. Gurus act in very much like the gray aliens have acted with me, which is this higher level. You have to understand something, and if you don't, then you don't understand it. We can't make you on our level if you don't know how to get up to our level. So it's kind of this problem that gets created about what it means to, when we're dealing with different levels of scale of understanding of comprehension and consciousness. And lastly, the point to making about why we should be finding God is the aliens are bringing the paranormal to our world, which we are defenseless from. But God, which is our own higher self, when you find God within, you're connecting with your own higher self, which is the God part of you merged in the God field. It's the higher self. And this is our power in the realm of the paranormal. I know that because in my own mediumship stuff, having that God sense. Listen, I've dealt with entities that people would call demonic, and they're not demons. They are emotionally abused entities. And then when you see the God in it, it knows you see the God in it, and it treats it that way. And so I think this is part of the picture, that there is a unified field force, and humans are very confused about what God is. There's a whole bunch of problems. I know even when I say the word, everyone goes back to kind of a Christian or maybe even religious thinking, and that's part of the conflict and problem, is that we don't have a clue at this level what that even means, and that creates some of these conflicts on the entity, spiritual, and dimensional levels. So that's my story, people. And so my book, The Rising and the Alien Plan to Build an Enlightened City on Earth. My website again, www.jeffselver.com. My YouTube channel, where I'll be posting videos, and of course Facebook as well too. And yeah, so thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Jeff. That was very interesting. Do you want to stop your screen share and we take some questions from the members?
Sure, definitely.
Sure. Can you? Yeah, okay. Does anyone have a question for Jeff?
Yeah, if you don't mind, can I go?
Yeah.
Hi, Jeff. So probably the most amazing story I've ever heard. So congratulations on your story, and you told it really
Thank you.
well.
Thank
Just
you. Thank you.
sorry to be picky, but you mentioned
No.
these um aliens are stewarding us into a new enlightenment. But don't you feel they're doing a bad job right now?
Pardon? Sorry, what was the question?
They're stewarding us into a new area of enlightenment. So basically they're trying to push into an area like, when the things will be better for us. But their
Right. I believe it
stewardship,
is.
yeah, their stewardship right now, I would say, isn't working too well with all the wars
Right.
that we're having, and
Right.
and sadly our greed and stuff. But we seem to be look, I'm not sure about climate change, but end of the day, I think we are ruining the planet, and we're
Yeah.
not doing enough to fix that. And I think we could be too late to fix it. So
Yeah.
my question is, they're not doing enough to help us to get to where we want to go.
Yeah, yeah, it's a great point. I totally can understand that, definitely. And I think so in you know, as I mentioned, I have a Vedic guru, and I just find these crossovers very similar. My guru doesn't he doesn't he doesn't do things for me. Thank you, Cheryl. Yeah, thank you. He doesn't do things for me. And I have to, he gives me the principles. That's what he says. I give you the principles and then you have to do it. And look at the way the aliens are dealing with the crafts, right? They're crashing crafts. They're not coming down and telling you how to drive the craft. They're crashing it. And then we are the ones who figure it out. It's a slightly embarrassing element to my story. It's embarrassing because we're not there yet to fully accept this. I still have telepathy with the alien, and she does not give me the answers to everything. And she waits for me to figure things out on my own. And then when I do, then she gives me more to help me understand that thing I stumbled upon. And I really see an element of evolution about how to evolve people at play here. So it's less of we're gonna bring you in, and yet but more about we want you to figure out how to come. And I think that's what's at play here. And then the human is, yeah, I agree, it looks awful, but I don't know. I don't know what degree they're doing it, what degree is the freedom of the human to figure it out on their own. And yeah, you're right. And at the same time, it's obviously a strange juggle that we have to figure some of this stuff out on ourselves. And also, I know what the story is, right? Coming down, Great Alien City. I don't actually understand some of the details. Like everyone now just has this tech, or is there a process where they're here and then humans can witness it, but we still have to learn on our own, right? Like there might, I just don't know, but there is an element here where the aliens don't just give everything. And I'm very aware of that. And I think that's evidenced through the crashes, through the UFO crashes, that they don't tell you how to drive that craft. They give it to you and then you have to figure it out for yourself. And it's very similar to my own story, the rising, the thing that they did with me, the consciousness event. I actually argue with them about it in the 23rd contact event. And she's saying, we couldn't have involved ourselves the way you hoped we would. We gave this to you and then you had to figure it out for yourself. And so we give you a piece and then you have to learn and develop from it. And that's, I think, the only answer I can provide to what you're saying. It's big picture, and I think there's something to be said about evolution and how to help evolve and how much they have to kind of stand off while simultaneously giving pieces. Yeah,
So
does
great
that help?
answer and a great question and great presentation again. Thank you for sharing your story. Great work.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
And Lena, you have your hand up. Do you want to ask Jeff?
Yeah, great presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Lena.
My question is like, we were given a vision of a city being built and of the union of species helping to save the planet and that sort of stuff. And I know the information is probably not detailed, and I'm just wondering whether you were given an impression whether those changes are likely to happen imminently, or like is it we're generations away from that happening? Did you get an impression of that?
Yeah, great question. And the impression, again, actually one part, I don't like playing prophet. I say that in the book. So yeah, I do my best to kind of say these are the impressions, and I really like that word. And the impression I have is a very quick, as if something might happen on the planet, and then in response, everything is very quick and fast. And then they're here with that kind of city idea, or the tech is on the planet, on the ground finally. That's the impression I have. And the generational aspect is the integration of the entire planet. So as if like there's a city, and then the humans are like some version of the humans, maybe some people in other parts of the world are sitting there saying, what is going on here? And yet another part of the humans might fully want to jump in and join with it. And then they just kind of let the humans be on the planet while there's a city here. And it's like that. And then over generations, there's an acceptance, and then a full adaptability of the entire planet converting over to this new era, if you will, that is nature focused. Yeah. And high consciousness kind of content. That's my, again, impression. Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, it would be. Yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah,
it
is. It is.
Yeah.
I know, and I agree with these things. And if you have to kind of wonder, like, we got videos of all these crafts. Well, like we got videos of the craft. They're not landing. Why aren't they landing? Why aren't they interacting with someone in a very public way? It's because there might be a bigger picture that's part of this. And I do believe, I say this to everybody, I'm convinced of it because of the White Room and the things I've experienced with them. We will all have more freedoms in that world than we do in the world we have right now. And I think it's the speed bump in between that is the problem. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Next question.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, Deborah, go ahead.
I've just suddenly lost it. Firstly, thank you very much for a very, very amazing story. Your journey has been incredible. I can see, and I'm looking forward to reading your book. I'm reading Susie Hanson's at the moment. I'm almost finished. It's just brought up a whole lot of stuff for me. Do you see this event happening in our lifetime? The actual disclosure, and the ET will be the disclosers, not. And my other part of the question is, who do you think is stopping disclosure here?
What do I think is stopping disclosure? Is that question?
Yeah.
Yeah. This is a good question, and I'm convinced that so I have an essay on my website, and I'm pretty convinced it looks like there's circumstantial evidence that they did come down in the 50s at some point. Maybe it was the 40s. I don't really know, but there was an interaction with a higher level government. And when you understand how awkward this is, the aliens are awkward. They are awkward. They are hard to swallow, actually. Their realm, their world, everything, it's hard to swallow. And I'm convinced they approached a leader group, and then the idea was to make that transition smoother, because you're going to need us, because the world is going to, you're going to experience some pains and troubles and hardships. So you're going to need us, and we want to be there, and we want to help with this process. And though I think the aliens play the game of not telling the whole picture, because the human lacks the comprehension. So then that makes the human terrified, and then the human doesn't want to listen to them. And I think that game has been playing out over several decades. And it looks like there's circumstantial evidence that that's the case. And And now I'm convinced they kind of have agreed. They're like, yeah, we have to do this. And the bottom line is there's something very fundamental about leadership and human leadership and the world. And when a leader says something, we all listen, we all agree. And unless we don't trust the leadership, right? Obviously. But an example of this is, experiencers and contactees have a hard time. And then David Grush came out, and when I walked into my work, everybody was clapping. And it's a very big change when all of a sudden an official or leadership starts acknowledging these things. And that makes a very big change happen when a leader would all of a sudden announce it. But
Yes.
what if they're announcing something that is astronomical to the human comprehension? So you do have a bit of you have a problem. You literally have a human problem, not the alien problem anymore, a human problem about how to handle the information. So I think it's something like that. I think we're dealing with paranormal, we're dealing with the afterlife, we're dealing with things that humans don't even put any thought into. And not just that, the scientists, right? Like we do need science on this, but the scientists aren't studying consciousness, so they're very involved in their own little worlds, and that's why even Neil deGrasse Tyson is still fighting with contactees and Dr. Gary Nolan about what's real here, right? And that's ridiculous because he has no frame of reference for understanding this type of material, and that's the legitimate issues going on here. And so I see that there's no single piece of infrastructure in the entire human system to help with this. And it creates a wild west of consciousness, right? Is there going to be a new religion? Are there going to be several religions? Are there going to be cults? What will happen here? Are people going to want to fight it? I think that there's a lack of control. And I think not a control, but a lack of understanding how to move forward. And I'm convinced that, so I've heard John Ramirez say 2027, because it was actually a 10-year, Lou Elizondo, this whole Pentagon, these 3 videos coming out, it's actually a 10-year process of soft disclosure. And that makes all the sense for me because the whole point, the aliens have explained, is the damage to the planet is the issue. So then giving a timeline and saying a stamp has to happen. It has to happen. However that happens. Now, I don't know what that will look like, but I am convinced that that is them putting pressure on the human who now understands, this is in our best interest that we listen to these guys. And yet it's a strange process of trying to figure how to make this happen. And I'm convinced that in our lifetime, we will see this. I'm convinced of it. It's just, again, the speed bump and how that all unravels and unfolds. And also, will it be all of it? I don't know that disclosure includes humans accessing this afterlife now. Like, I don't know that's what that means. I still think the aliens will be maybe touchy with certain humans being able to have full access to stuff because the human might not be set up for themselves with the lives they've lived, right? So I think the picture is so complex and so hard to manage. That is part of the reason. And the other reason is fear, because it's just so off the wall that it's pretty obvious that it's very easy for people to say this is demonic or this is, it's
No.
just something I don't want to deal with. And I think that creates some of the problems in this as well too.
Just one more question, if you don't mind. Our current so-called powers that be that are setting themselves up to run the planet, humans, they're certainly human to look at. But I would like to know from your understanding perspective, are we to trust them? Are we to trust the class clubs, that whole sphere of society that is micromanaging us every day? I have no trust, obviously, in that. That's probably evident to you, and that comes from what information I've taken on board. But can you just give your perspective on that? I would really appreciate it.
So you're talking like New World Order kind of ideas. Is that what you're talking about here?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, that's a great question. And I'm only going to give my perspective. That's all it is, right? It's a perspective.
Yeah.
It's an opinion. So I was in a company at one point, and I was an employee of that company, and we used to say, "This manager, what an idiot that guy is! Why did he do that?" Oh, and we kind of say like, "Oh, he doesn't know what he's doing," and we kind of scoff at him and call them, behind their backs, obviously, that they don't know what they're doing, and they don't know how to run a company, and they're idiots, and you talk like that. And then I got into the management role, and all of a sudden I understood why they were making the choices they were making. And then I also understood why they don't tell us those choices, because when we have to make the choices, we can't have a ton of other people inputting, because it just convolutes the problem. It convolutes the trying to make the right choice, because the people below don't have all the information that the person in the middle does have. So, and it doesn't help the lower person to make those choices. I then got my MBA, and I realized that things like the stock market and banking systems are huge machines that contain thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of individuals. And not that I didn't fully believe that, but I didn't investigate or learn about that stuff. And so that's why I really enjoyed doing my MBA, because I learned about the economy and I learned about the world. And my end perspective is no, I don't believe in things like that. The reason I don't is because humans are never able to mobilize over anything. And we are really bad at mobilizing together as a collective for anything. So the idea that there's this nefarity going on that's as massive as that would be and require, and that we wouldn't know about it in very clear and concrete terms, it doesn't seem very human at all, actually. Humans would give out everything out of terror. And even look at the UFO field. We have DOD going public because he wants to tell people information. And people have been doing that, by the way, for decades, and we haven't been listening to them. So when people have nefarity information, they do tell the public, and they give a lot of details, and they're credible people, like Colonel Corso, right, is an example of that. So so I don't think I don't lean towards that. I lean towards capitalism is in itself self-destructive. And we have all the evidence that that's the case. We do know capitalism is self-destructive. There's enough economic research, and we know that we live in a system that will self-implode. And it doesn't help the bottom people. It doesn't, that's just it. We live in a system. And so I see everyone as kind of victims to the sheep system, this is what we're all born into. I actually don't blame anybody. I don't believe in a cabal. Though it doesn't mean there's not a group of people who are self-interests and have self-invested interest, but they're not controlling the media person who's telling you that thing, who's sending that product to your house, or that to level and scale doesn't exist, because humans can't even come together on anything. Look at what COVID did. We had so many people actually break out into conspiracy theories, never mind what was really going on, never mind the capitalism that was involved, never mind how every country couldn't get on the same page. So there was actually this level and scale of disorganization that is more human-like than actually humans kind of coming together in this grand unified kind of deception. And so I lean towards that. I lean towards everyone's playing the role that they were born into. And that it's hard to argue that if you weren't born, or any other human born into those shoes, having the same career drive, the same money you probably made, same mansions you probably owned, and the same family that relied on it, that you might not make similar choices. You might, and maybe they think they're doing something good also, though it's maybe turning out deceptive for someone else. It's really, the world is just filled with a lot of people making a lot of different choices. Oh, the other reason I also don't believe in that is because when you get to the level of government and corporation and all that, everyone's an A-type personality. No one wants to be underneath anybody else. So you're always striving to be the person on top. And that's what an A-type personality does. And that also doesn't wreak, collective deception, because it means that there's a whole bunch of people taking orders and they're just complying with that. So anyway, big answer, because I have thought that through. And that's what I have to say to that. So yeah, it's just an opinion, by the way, too. Yeah. Yeah.
Any other questions? Hello. No, at the
Yeah,
moment.
Cheryl. It's Ben. I got a question.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jeff. That was awesome. I just stopped taking notes because there was so much information. So hopefully we'll get that one uploaded so I can watch that. Have you done like an extended presentation on that one at all? That's on YouTube or something like that?
All my contact events have been public. All my contact events have been on YouTube at one point. A lot of them are on my YouTube channel, and yeah, a lot of the contact events are on YouTube. And you just go to my YouTube channel. The contact events are in a contact event playlist, and so you can see the important ones are all there. Yeah.
But as in specifically this presentation, is there or
I
you're
made
just
this just for
suggesting
you.
that those videos?
I made this just for you guys. Yeah.
Also,
Yeah,
the other thing, that meeting that you were saying is coming up. What were the details of that one again? I think you said there was something in March. You showed some little presentation that.
That's right. Yeah, my own presentation. That's right. I'm doing let me see if I can pull it up here. Here, I'll actually what I'll do is I'll screen share. And are you able to see my screen share if I pull that up?
Yeah, just
here. I'll just quickly pull it up so I can share it, and then we can go back to not screen sharing. Oh, sorry, there's a bunch of different things going on here. So here it is here. So part one, how UAP whistleblowers keep repeating what aliens said to me. March 9th, Saturday at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And I just, these guys are talking. We've got Bob Bigelow, Tom DeLong, Lou Elizondo, John Ramirez, Ross Colthert, Chris Mellon, David Grush. They're all officials. They all get paid more than I do. They all speak on behalf of UAP technology and UAPs and aliens, and they have said some things. And a lot of their stuff matches the story you just heard. So yeah, and there's a bunch of stuff that will be in the presentation. Some things have happened that have been said under the radar, and people didn't know about it as well too. And so will be bringing that to light, and also others surrounding these people have kind of hinted at things. So it will include the being's interdimensionality, the biology and physiology of the aliens. Some people have spoken about that who had official knowledge. Human history, including intervention by aliens. The being's motivations are regarding human planetary destruction. Their plan is to merge with us, and what's to come. Kind of some things I have about the future, so that are being corroborated. So, yeah.
Will that be recorded, Jeff?
It will be recorded, and it will also be on my website on my YouTube channel as well too. Yeah,
that's good.
And was Susie going to be speaking at that as well?
No, Susie is not speaking at that event. No, I just did a previous presentation. It was actually the book launch for my second edition, and Susie and me had we shared the presentation. We actually had the section at the end was me and her cross cooperating the similarities of our contact events. And but no, not this.
Yeah. Okay. No, John Ramirez is someone that I follow quite heavily, and yeah, so I know that he hadn't done a presentation in a while. So this would be he's speaking at this presentation, you're saying?
No. Please do not get confused with me bringing any of those people in. I'm using their words.
It'd be a good get, though.
It would be amazing, but yeah, it would definitely be amazing.
Okay.
No, it's low. It's second grade. It's low grade where I'm just using their words, and I'll be comparing with my own experience in contact events. For example, Jean Ramirez, right, has talked about the alien DNA, right? So there's a picture here that their DNA is not far off from ours. So me being public and saying that I have great alien DNA is not too far from the picture, considering he is also now on the table saying their DNA structure is highly similar to ours. And he also hinted at then who's controlling this, which is, there's another mantis higher up species. And so he's hinted at some things that are leaning towards these kind of bigger pictures that we have. So, yeah.
Yeah. His presentations are amazing. The amount of information, if you go into his presentations, are insane. Thank you. Yours was brilliant too. Honestly, I had to stop taking notes because I just had to listen. So yeah, that was really good, man. Thank you.
Great. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Jeff, it's Cheryl here.
Hey, Cheryl.
I have a question. You mentioned that aliens are crashing craft. Are you suggesting they're doing that on purpose?
Yeah, okay. I am. And the elder, actually, I didn't say it here. The elder says to me in 24th contact event, we're getting humans ready. And they shouldn't give any more details than that. But,
okay, so,
there's this.
Pardon? I was going to say, so, and I think you said that they're not landing. But in the past they have.
Right.
And I'm wondering now, because in Australia, I'm not sure about what's going on over where you are, but in Australia, the UFO reports are not of close-up craft that are on the ground and people giving these intricate details like they used to be. So there's been a shift in that. So I'm wondering whether they're actually not doing that now, not landing the way that they were because we've figured out how to bring them down, and maybe they're not crashing themselves, but maybe we're bringing them down because, hey, we want their tech, don't we?
What do you mean? So, I think I don't fully like. There's, I
Oh,
guess, several things that could be, because if it's tied to the crashes,
mm,
apparently there's some stories that they literally leave the craft. So
yeah,
apparently they'll literally drop the craft down, leave it for humans, and then the Pentagon or the military has come and taken them, and
yeah.
to study them. And but then there's another scenario of them landing, coming out and walking and interacting with a human. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, there is that, and we've had that in the
Yeah.
past. But what I'm saying
Yeah.
is, or suggesting possibly another interpretation, is that maybe we've figured out their technology enough to be able to bring them down to Earth. You know what I mean? Like to make them crash.
Yeah, Ross Coulthart just said in that quote, we're having so much problems reverse engineering the tech.
Mm,
And Lou Elizondo said that as well too. And he actually said something that links back to all contactees' experiences. Only certain types of people can operate the craft.
yeah,
So that there might be a genetic component. The craft is alive itself.
yeah.
Also, the other element here is that I just they can see the future. So the idea that anything is happening that they don't want to happen, I don't, it doesn't make sense, the bigger picture. And also they're crashing all over the world. So it's not happening in isolated countries, right? It's happening in Brazil, and then you'll have like I don't know about Zimbabwe. I'm using Zimbabwe as an example, but it'll be random countries that they're happening in, and China, and they're happening in places where you would not expect that to happen. But the aliens themselves are always very kind of, at least in the contact events, specifically with me, they're very globalist. Not just focusing on America, which sometimes seems to be the central of this stuff, but they're actually choosing a lot of places. And so, yeah, I wouldn't lean towards that myself, but of course, I don't know what the government has or what they've developed. And so you could be right about something there. I don't know. Yeah.
What would you think of? Well, what do you think of these other cases where um, some of these, well, supposed extraterrestrials, I guess, are not behaving in a way that is positive for humanity, like the Colares incident, where there were a lot of people being shot by with these beams of light, which were actually, hurting a lot of people. Or just recently, last year, we had the report of the aliens that were attacking people over in a similar area. And Timothy Alberino, I don't know if you've heard of him, but he went over there and he investigated that as well. And he believes that because that was a story where they was trying to make out that it wasn't aliens who were shooting beams of light to hurt people, but it was actually miners, on these hoverboards coming down. Yeah, that story.
Right. Yeah, it's Peru, right? It was happening in Peru. Is that
Yeah,
right?
or somewhere like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he
Because
great description. He received great descriptions of these beings from the local people, and he came away believing that what they'd said was actually accurate. And so how do you sort of weigh up, what you've said, which is positive,
yeah,
these other experiences? And I sort of raised that with you in our pre-chat to the meeting too.
yeah,
Like, how do
yeah.
you sort of reconcile those?
Yeah, it's interesting. So I tried to do a relatively deep dive onto that, and I didn't find anything that for me was evidence enough that something was actually going on. I couldn't quite make out, though I didn't maybe look into the person. I saw that someone went down there trying to understand it, and I didn't see too much about else what he said that added up. I saw a picture, but the picture didn't look like it was real, and I had trouble with it actually myself, so I didn't know what to think of it. But there are some things that don't make sense about it. So
Mm,
so just focusing on the BC UFO database,
mm,
I did a presentation where I focused on all my locations, the geographical locations, and I have actually a bunch of research like I have a video on my YouTube channel how the research supports great aliens are benevolent. Never mind the contact experiences. We have Kathleen Martin and Preston Denning and Mary Rodwell going into the thousands of contactees, kind of leaning towards we don't have really a lot of aggressive or awful. Yes, there's traumas, but we might be dealing with something that's a little bit on a different level. But we're not dealing with missing arms. What would actually be considered malevolent behavior. And the other is that the UFO field, like you probably see this in your databases. humans are interacting with these UFOs, but nothing is benevolent. Or sorry, nothing is malevolent. Everything is even sometimes inquisitive, where the human might be trying to communicate with it, and then the UFO might stop and interact. And the moment fear is involved, the UFO leaves. And I couldn't find a single malevolent UFO sighting in the entire UFO basic database. And though there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them, so that something like doesn't add up with the perspective. Now, could there be a scenario here? I can't answer that because there could be a scenario of other malevolent entities. Yeah, I mean, maybe, and apparently in the field, there is still a story about, there might be, there's grays, but there's also other things going on here. And could something be malevolent to humans? Maybe. And yeah, maybe something could still be malevolent. I don't really know. I don't have the whole picture. And but I still need like more evidence that was legitimate, because it just didn't add up. They couldn't really provide any real evidence on video or photo that these people, something was really going on. I just couldn't find enough to satisfy my own curiosity about what that was. Same with the kid, right? The kid who went to San Francisco with a meteor, that the cop caught the meteor on the anyway. I think happened in San Francisco, where the cop caught the meteor and the kid said there was an alien in his backyard and the police were involved. Yeah. And so things like that, where you're kind of like, you're trying to figure out and you're left on the fence about what it really is. And yeah, so
there are malevolent cases in some of the literature. I remember Leonard Stringfeld, he had some reported to him during the Vietnam War, and then there was some in the Korean War, they're out there. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's another twist to the malevolent stuff as well too, and this is the part that I always try to bring back to people. If we're dealing with paranormal entities, they're reading your thoughts and feelings. So if you're an aggressive individual, like, see, I think I can think of a malevolent scenario in the Rendlesham Forest, actually, is malevolent, right? Where apparently the man who interacted with the craft in the forest came back. He apparently had missing time, and now he had these body problems. But I was like, well, he's a military guy, and like he may have been thinking aggressive, like a fight and attack of this thing, and they're thinking you're going to kill me or you're going to attempt to fight and attack me. So then it just uses its powers on him. That's the only thing. There might be an element of, we do know this exists too. The military has, I think, I can't remember where it's Chris Mellon. I can't remember where I heard it, but their orders are to shoot first. So you can really see that that from the perspective of the entities, there might be an aggressive human element to the interaction that it has to protect itself from. And so I don't quite know. I know I'm not saying that's all cases, but there still is, that's part of the mix as well too. That with it's aware of how the human's going to react, and so it's also playing maybe a bit of defense as well too. And I think it's maybe part of the picture that we're dealing with humans that aren't aware for their environment or aware of interacting with them on their level, and then and we may be coming off as aggressive first, and then it's trying to deal with us. And so, but again, I do believe possibly there's malevolent species that are not, yeah, I believe that call possibly could exist as well too, and that, but somehow they're being managed where they're not, because they're not running amok killing people, and there's not stories of mass murders from aliens. So there's something still going on where they're not allowed to interact with humans on a grand scale, right? So it's very interesting, and I do believe that could exist. I do, yeah.
Yeah, it's quite a complex phenomenon.
Yeah, it is. And the complexity is that the dimensional, like just the fact that that's being agreed upon. I mean that now it's like, oh, there's a scale of something with which we weren't even. That's why I said this isn't Star Trek, right? These are ghosts with tech is probably a better way to think about it, because we thought it would all be like Star Trek, and this is just a whole other bag that it's something dimensional. Yeah.
Anyone else have some questions?
Yeah, can I add to it?
Yeah.
I'm an experiencer or whatever label you want to put there. I don't really care, but it's not on the positive side. And last one was 3 weeks ago, and I don't want these fuckers to turn. Oh, sorry, I don't want these buggers to turn up. Anything that turns up, in my opinion, in your house, uninvited, doesn't hurt you per se, but uninvited, and is doing a bit of mind trickery, is not welcome. So that's not a positive experience as far as I'm concerned. And I've had these, at least 4 of that I'm aware of since I was 23. And the last one, a couple of weeks ago, I actually caught the bugger right by the hand. So I know what they like to touch, to feel. I can describe its hand. I don't know how to tell you, but I find it a little it contradicts what you're saying, because in my experience, it's neutral to slightly negative. You know what I mean? And also, I found what you said a little bit contradictory. Like you said, it's a natural order of things, but if something's been engineered to, like, engineer a society, engineer a replacement, then you're being replaced. That's not natural. That's engineered. So it contradicts. Just a little. I feel it contradicts to what the 1990s narrative is.
So do you have could you nail down a question? I could definitely answer something, but
well, you said you didn't have any negative or how much of a negative do you think is out there? Because I definitely experienced the negativity of it. So I've had experiences of being taken. I've had stuff done to the side of my head. My last experience was 3 weeks. None of this is invited. None of this is unwanted. And I've caught the damn things. I've experienced telepathy, and I know it's yeah. I don't want any of this. I just say, how would you maybe even say how to get rid of this kind of stuff? And it's not a paranormal experience. It's a very physical experience. And I know the signs of how to break out, like say when you can't move. I know how to break out of that now, because just through trial and error, if you like. What would your advice be to something to say it's not a positive experience?
Yeah. So let me give you my take on that. I appreciate that, and I can empathize. So first and foremost, not all my experiences are positive, and as my book lays out, I definitely have my share of the bad experience. Now, the problem, well, not the problem, but the perception that I understand is that so just even agreeing or accepting or understanding that we're dealing with something that's on a dimensional level, then there's another element to the interaction that even I'm playing a part of. And that's the reality that I actually did agree to it on another level. I agreed before I was born. And so when they're interacting with me and I was not liking it, they did explain that resolution to me. So I was beneficial that I actually got to see that you're right, I did make that choice on another level in another space. And so then it ended, and those kind of aggressive behaviors ended. Now when we're dealing, I mean, another thing that I do know that happens here is, so they like to play with our limited perspective of reality. And like, I don't really know, I don't want to say that this is happening to you, because I don't know what's happening. And I don't want to, especially offend anything that's happening to you specifically. But I do see in the contact experience, especially with the way the aliens actually interact with people. I've actually seen some of the more aggressive, but definitely the very forceful interactions are often playing with the minds of the human. So like they kind of get enjoyment out of the limited reality. Like, okay, so here's an example of this. The one case I found in my UFO BC database of a UFO acting in malevolent behavior was the human who thought of them as demons. So he was a Christian fellow, and he was thinking it was a demon. He was in his car and he was driving down the highway and he was being chased by it. And I thought that was just really weird. And it adds up to some of the other experiences I've seen too, where when we are the ones taking on a perspective of them, then they're the ones responding to us in that perspective. And almost like and what's weird about that is my guru will do that. My guru, if I get into a heated emotional argument, then he plays up that other aspect of what I'm kind of the emotional element I'm playing on. And so it's a weird kind of crossover of behavior of what I see of high level beings when we demand that this is what it is, I know what this is going on, or I feel this way about it, then it does seem to say, okay, fine, I'm that for you. And it comes in like that. And so I've seen people at least some of the reports that where you're having kind of demonic activity is from people who believe in demons. And so I'm not saying that's happening for you, and I can't speak to that experience. And the only thing I know that works in a power like this is to find your own power, is to actually say to, and I wasn't being new agey or religious saying find God, because it is your higher power. It's the essence of you that's interacting with these other entities. Now, I'm only going to suggest, and I don't know that that's the full answer for you, but it's to like meditate and to find that higher power within. And the entities that I've interacted with, even ghosts on this level, don't like it. And they themselves will actually can repel off from, doing Vedic chants, really disturbed them, or change the vibration or change the frequency or something. And then I experience repelled, or I wear a mullah. I had an experience where I was investigating paranormal activity in the forest, and it seemed to follow me back. And then, and I had awful dreams. I won't describe what those dreams are, but I woke up in the middle of the night sweating from these dreams, and it never happens to me. And I had to put my mullah on. And then as soon as the mullah happened, that was the end of it. It was all done, and it didn't come back. But there's something to be said about vibration, frequencies, and so yeah, I don't know if any of that is helpful for you, but yeah, those are the things that I can suggest, and yeah.
Yeah, I do understand what you're saying, because it is, at least with my experience, it's a state of mind to break their cycle. But I'm not religious. You won't offend me. Yeah, I do. Yeah, I said to get the state of mind thing, but there's no. I don't do anything positive or negative or whatever to attract things. I just get on with my life, and
Yeah, that might be separate though. That could be separate. Yeah. I mean, saying like you don't know why they're interested with you, and you might still not know. I'm not saying that part will play. They might still do that. I don't know that, but when I'm kind of more when they're in the environment, to kind of take control of your own power is again. I'm not saying that I know that that's the answer, but that's what I'm kind of suggesting. Yeah. Yeah, I can't answer why. It could be genetic too, why they're interested in you. There's a variety of things that happen in people's lives that these entities get interested in. So,
all right, I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Comments? No? Okay. Well, we might wind it up there, Jeff. And thank you so much for your time.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it. I would love to chew over a few points with you at some later stage. And I'll send you some details of some cases that I have of, strange things, put it that way.
Yeah, please.
Connections with close encounters in the afterlife, because that's the next
Powerful.
I'm very interested in too.
Very powerful. Yeah, near-death experiences. Yeah, I love it's very fascinating stuff. You got it.
Yeah. So would you like, hang on, I'll just take you out of, so we'll say goodbye now, and I'll just remove the spotlight so that everyone can say goodbye. You can see everybody else. And once again, thanks for your time. We really appreciate it. And good luck with your book.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Cheryl. Thank you everybody for being here and in your inquisitive questions. And yeah, I really appreciated it, and very happy to share my story. So thank you so much. Woohoo, Canada, eh? That's great.
Come back from Canada.
Hey, Canada, eh? Yeah, got it. Yeah, I have to keep it up. Yeah, that's great.
Keep the good experiences coming.
Yeah.
We like those stories the best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's not much more to ask. It would be, thanks very much.
Yeah, you can reach me through my email as well too. All those links I sent. Yeah, you got it. They're all there. You can reach out to me. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone. Thanks for joining us, and
thank you.
see you next month. Okay. Bye.
Bye.